Donald Trump's hush money trial today. The jury heard more testimony from tabloid publisher David Pecker, who described how he would help kill negative stories about Trump ahead of the 2016 election. Former federal prosecutor Neama Rahmani is joining us on Drive Time. Good to talk to you again. So, of course, it's early in the trial, but prosecutors are trying to show how the squashing of negative stories illegally influenced the election. How do you think they're doing so far?
I think they're doing okay. I mean, here's the challenge in the case. We all know under New York law, false business records, they're just a misdemeanor. So the state needs to prove that they were in furtherance of or to cover up another crime. That's where the whole election fraud argument comes in. So what the prosecution is trying to do is prove that fraud, but also prove Trump's role in all this. We know he's going to say that he just signed the check. He wasn't responsible for how the accounting happened. But, you know, whether it's Pecker, whether it's Cohen, they're trying to connect the dots to show that Trump was the one that was calling the shots and he was an integral part of this conspiracy.
A lot of people think that this isn't a very strong case against Trump. Where do you stand?
Well, of all the four criminal cases, it is by far and away the weakest for a number of reasons. Well, first of all, the trying to overturn the 2020 election and mishandling classified documents, allegedly, those are far more serious crimes. We're talking here about a hush money payment. We all know that having an affair isn't unlawful. Paying to cover it up isn't unlawful. So really, we're talking about the $420,000 payment to Michael Cohen that was booked as a business expense. So when you're comparing this case to the others, which are more serious, I mean, I do agree that this is something that is far less serious. That's why it's rejected by the feds. And even though it was initiated by former Manhattan DA Cyrus Vance Jr., he never proceeded on these charges.
Now, the judge held a hearing this morning, but has yet to rule on whether Trump has violated the gag order in the case. Repeatedly, prosecutors say. Do you suspect he has?
Oh, I believe so. Trump has violated the gag order at every possible turn. Even when the defense was trying to argue this morning that Trump did not, the judge said, counsel, you're losing all credibility with this court by making this argument. So I don't think it's a question of whether Trump violated the order, but what is Judge Juan Merchan going to do about it? Is he going to impose some nominal fine, thousands of dollars? Well, that's what the previous judge in the New York civil fraud case did. Fine Trump $10,000. But that's walking around money for the former president. That's not going to change his behavior. The real question is, will a judge actually have the intestinal fortitude to hold him in contempt?
Do you think that's a possibility?
I think that's unlikely because obviously jailing Donald Trump would open up a potential political Pandora's box, might cause civil unrest. So I think the judge is going to try to do everything he can short of doing that to try to rein Trump in and make sure that he adheres to that order. But we know that no one can control Donald Trump, not even his own lawyers.
Now, Neama, I have to ask, if he were to go behind bars for contempt, or if he's found guilty in this case and the judge actually sentences him to some time, a former president being sentenced to jail or prison obviously has never happened before. How would that work? Would Secret Service have to be with him behind bars?
Yes, we really are in uncharted legal waters, but the Secret Service protection doesn't go away just because someone is behind bars. So even when Trump was booked there in Fulton County, obviously had his mugshot taken, Secret Service was present the entire time. So, you know, we don't know what's going to happen. I think it's unlikely that Trump is jailed because of contempt. I think it's also very unlikely that Trump is jailed even if he is convicted in the Stormy Daniels hush money case. But in the unlikely event that Trump is behind bars, Secret Service would be there with him. And of course, he would be isolated from the general population.
Well, that would have to be a must, right? I mean, there's all sorts of questions. Would the Secret Service agents still be allowed to carry their guns into the jail or prison? I mean, there's a lot of tentacles to it, right?
No, there are. And, you know, we really are. I mean, on Thursday, we're talking about presidential immunity and whether it's absolute or just covers official acts. I mean, this is something that the justices haven't considered since U.S. v. Nixon, at least in the criminal context. And of course, we have never considered procedurally how to house a former president if he's in custody. And let's not forget, even if Trump is convicted, even if he's behind bars, he can still be president of the United States. There's nothing prohibiting a felon or someone in custody from being president.
What about if Trump, in the end of all this, is found guilty and sentenced to probation? Would he still have to come back to New York regularly and report to a probation officer like anybody else?
I mean, he would, just like he has to be in court every day, and he's not happy about it. You know, every day he comes out, he talks to the media and says, this is time I can be spent campaigning. But the judges and the courts there in New York are trying to hold Donald Trump to the same standard as any other party in any other case. So if he is indeed sentenced to probation, he's going to have to check in with his probation officer just like the rest of us.
Unreal. Former federal prosecutor Neama Rahmani, always good to hear from you. I'm sure we'll check in with you again as this wacky year goes on. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me.